This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to Teach Me Pokemon, the podcast. I'm your host, Corey, and along with my co-host, Jared, we're best friends, been playing Pokemon for a very long time.
All right, here we are. Teach Me Pokemon, episode 976. I'm totally making that up, but I am Corey here with Jared. Jared, we've probably done like 50.
Yeah, we should look into that.
All right. Well, I'm here in Japan right now, as you can see behind my right shoulder. If you're watching on YouTube, the city championships that took place in Tokyo is going on here in Japan. It's great, Jared. Talking to all my Japanese fans. So this is awesome. No, big shout out to Azul for restreaming the tournament. This is just some action, Jared. Day two. No idea who's playing each other, but it's Pokemon and it's Stellar Crown. So that's all that cares. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters, man. That's all that matters.
Yeah. So what are we diving in first? What are we doing?
Well, everything is Stellar Crown right now, right? Like, so we got to talk about that, but we can't not look at what happened here in Japan. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about some of the things, some of the different archetypes that we're seeing on live. That'll be our first section. Then if you guys stick around for our second section, we're going to be making predictions for the two big tournaments this weekend, one in Germany, one in Brazil. And then we're going to have ourselves a short little but powerful education moment this morning. So that's what's going on in our episode today.
I like that. Short and powerful. That's great.
Short and
That's
powerful.
Great. Well, what were your thoughts of the Tokyo City Championships, the small, really small little tournament that took place in Japan?
You know, just short of 5,000 people. No big deal.
Just short of 5,000.
But shout out to Haruto for taking it down on something that I never in a million years would have predicted. But I guess it's time that Raging Bolt made a breakthrough, Corey, and got the dub.
It was time. I think the Raging Bolt, and if you look at the list, there's only one Stellar Crown card, I think.
Yeah.
Which is probably going to end up being one of the most popular Stellar Crown cards in every set, which will be Briar.
Briar.
We can I tell a story?
Yeah, please tell this story.
So you call me. You know, this is like 4 or 5 days ago. You called me. You're all upset, up in arms. Pokemon Live had a glitch. There was a glitch. This Dragapult scooped 6 prizes in one turn. And it was a glitch. They spread damage on the 2 Golden Goes, so they knocked out 2 for 4 prizes. They Dusknored the Greninja for the 5th prize, and then they took 6, and it was like unfair. When in reality, they just briared you because you had 2 prizes left yourself. Wow. Well, can we talk about the Briar card? Raging Bolt, we've talked ad nauseum, and everyone knows what Raging Bolt does. Why does Briar come in and now this deck takes down a 5,000 person tournament in Japan?
I think it's such an important card, and I think you're right. I think we're going to see it a lot for a number of different reasons. But the reason that this card is important is because when your opponent is trying to change the prize map, this unchanges it. This is a reversal. So no longer, if your opponent is sitting at 3, sometimes 4 prize cards, can you feel safe? I thought I was safe, Corey. I was up 6 prizes to 2. Game was in the bag. This Dragapult didn't know it hit it.
No.
And it knocked out. And that's further emphasized, I want to say, by the ability to work with Dusknoir, to do these different things where prize cards are changing off your turn. It is madness, my friend. It is madness. And your ability right now with the certain Pokemon abilities that we have to go and find Briar on that turn, to Pidgeot, find that Briar. Scary card, man. And now it's one of those cards that you're sitting back and it has to be in the back of your mind.
Yeah. Well, Luminion for it too is going to be a thing.
Great point.
I just think, the threat of the Briar, especially in those Dusknoir decks, where really the ability for you to control prizes for your opponent, which so it sounds like a funny thing to say because you're giving them a prize, but you're just setting them up. And That is such a good card, and I think Raging Bolt is fast. Japan loves Raging Bolt. In the
Yep.
national tournament we saw before NAIC, Raging Bolt was the thing there too. So it's obviously a deck that Japanese players love to play, but you add a Briar card in there, and it just can get you over the hump where you think you're behind in the prize trade, and now all of a sudden, oh nope, you win. So, um, as long as what I think the only downfall of Briar and Raging Bolt is like you almost want Bolt to be in a position where they have to play a Sadas every turn or they can't get the
Yep.
knockout, and that's the
Yep.
only tricky part with Briar is you're gonna have to be as a Raging Bolt player really get those Sadas and put energy on the board so that you don't have to Sadas to win the game. You want to play the Briar. So that's the only
Fair.
part that can get a little tricky, I think, with it. But awesome deck. Good job. It goes in the finals against Lugia. Uh, Masaki. Masaki running Lugia here. And I mean, anything jump out to you with this build? There were no Stellar Crown cards in this Lugia deck. Um, Surprised by that? Not surprised by that,
I'm
Jared?
super surprised by that. That is my biggest takeaway from this tournament is I'm going through what we saw in the top 16 decks. Where are the Stellar Crown cards at, Corey? Like I know we're gonna talk about this Palkia deck here in a second, and we're
Hmm.
gonna talk about some other variants that we're seeing here in live. But the rest of the world right now is looking at that tournament to try to make a read for Germany and for Brazil. How? What?
Yeah.
Like, you'd get a better understanding, in my opinion, of the meta right now by looking at what happened in Baltimore. This is there were big changes last season when we saw a Japanese tournament happen and a regional or an international event followed. It was
Yeah.
remember it was like Lugia, like,
Yeah.
but I don't
Do
I'm
you
looking at this tournament going like, what meta read do I really change except I need to be prepared for the Briar?
do you think that is specifically because Japan plays in a different format, like at how their tournaments? Because it's like they do 7 rounds in the first day, and it's like all best of one, right? And then 8 rounds the second day. It's interesting. They can change their decks between day one and day two. So none of that stuff is applicable in any other structure in the world. Do you think that's why it's hard to look at these Japanese tournaments and then make predictions for our tournaments?
I think so. I still think the best decks rise, though. Like, I don't think it's a fluke that what's in the top 16 is in the top 16. But looking at it, I'm seeing no new archetypes outside of this Terrapagos Palkia, which a lot of people have already been preparing for and getting ready for and testing. So, yes, you do have to take into account the style of play that's happening in Japan. But also, if you looked last year and compared Japanese winnings to US winnings, European winnings, LATAM winnings, it wasn't very different. It's not
Hmm.
like this one deck was winning in the East and it wasn't being successful in the West. It just played out a little bit differently in the numbers that were present day two.
Yeah.
So I'm wildly confused. Or is Japan playing the long game and they know something and they're like, we're not going to show. We've had these cards for a while. We're not going to show in our first big tournament.
Well, Japan might be playing the long game because that's Japan for you. So, they're sneaky. Um, okay, real quick, we'll run down third place, Charizard, Pidgeot. It's like that's like an old deck now. Like, geez, who runs Charizard, Pidgeot anymore? No, but third place, over under a half. How many Stellar Crowns were in this deck, Jared? Over under a half.
Under.
Under one. And it is so funny because I'm like, Briar? I'm like, why are they running a Briar? And I'm looking at them like, there's no Terra Pokemon in here. And I'm so stupid. It's like Charizard.
Charizard.
Charizard's like, dude, I was the OG Terra. And it's like, oh my gosh, freaking Charizard can run Briar. It's over. It's GG. And so I think this deck is going to make a fatty resurgence at Louisville. I don't know about Latin, and I know we're going to talk about Brazil and we're going to talk about Dortmund, but that's my early prediction for Louisville, Jared. Get your grass decks ready because this is stupid,
Yeah.
stupid. So again, Briar, Briar. Nothing really else about. I don't know if you want to mention. I mean, it has Dustnor, which is kind of now a staple in the Pidgeot decks with Charizard. So I'm not looking at that as like a new card or anything like that. But really, just it runs the one de-evoluter, which is cool. The Jamming Tower, but yeah, the Briar, third place, Charizard Pidgeot.
It's going to be a big card, man. Like, it's we just didn't look at its impact fully when we looked at it. I wasn't prepared for it when I saw it on live, but I think that's what people are picking up on. I think people are looking at these new Pokemon in Stellar Crown saying, I'll take the giant damage options that were in previous sets. There's some cool supportive stuff here, especially on the trainer supporter lines,
Yep.
and that's what we're going to see. So unless somebody is seeing something, and trust me, if it's out there, we will specifically, I believe, see it in Dortmund. I'm predicting that Brazil will look a little more like Japan. I think we'll see some variations in Europe for this upcoming tournament, but we'll
Well,
get into that here in
we're
a
gonna
little bit.
get yeah, we're gonna get there. Don't jump the gun. Don't jump the gun. Fourth place, Reggie Drago. No stellar crown cards in here. Uh, Pretty straightforward. Added the one penny, Temple of Sinnoh. We've seen that jamming tower. This could have been Ian Robb's deck at Worlds. I mean, it's
Sure.
it's pretty straightforward. Um, Fifth place.
Here we go.
Now let's go. Now let's go. Shout out to uh, Kento. Said, you know what? I'm going to bring the Stellar Crown cards to this tournament. I think Kento had 11 of them in here. So I mean, he
Love it.
was he was rocking it. Uh, the Palkia V Star paired with the Terrapagos, right? With the stadium. What I want to get the name right. Area Zero Under Depths. First time I've ever
It.
said that out loud.
It's a big boy stadium.
Yeah. Increasing the bench size. You have the attackers, obviously Palkia. You have the attacker Terrapagos. You can pivot to the Radiant Greninja if you want to snipe. Thoughts on this deck? It got fifth, so it got top eight. What do you think this is it? Is this the new big thing or no?
I I believe that the Palkia partnered with some type of Terra Pokemon into the Area Zero is going to be popular. I know we're going to talk about that here in a minute when we talk about our live decks. I think this is just the precursor. This is the rough draft. This
Yeah.
is what has the potential. You run the fan rotom so you can build that bench out. So yes, I think we will see a lot of this type of stuff. But if Japan is any indicator, it can get you so far. But we didn't see, day two swimming with this type of stuff. But it is very cool to see and interesting. They're leveraging here, finding the Bidoofs with the fan rotom and going less of the Bouffalont route, which we thought a lot of people would take of reducing the damage.
Yeah, I still maybe be a fan of the Buffalon. I know the draw is really important. Now you can't like find the Bibarel, the Bibarel and the Bibby. What's the little one? That's the little
Bidoof,
Bidoof.
baby.
The Mike Bibby, the point guard for the Sacramento Kings. Now, you can find them both, but you can't evolve them both, right? So it's like
Right.
you got to wait a turn. And then you're going to get Iono, so then it won't matter. But the Terrapagos, Jared, not impressed with its attacking. I
No,
that's so far. I've been playing a lot of it on live. I am almost thinking that this card is purely in this deck, so Palkia can hit bigger
100%.
numbers. It's not really an attacker here. I
No,
mean, if you're
it's
attacking with
not.
it, you're in trouble. I think
And
you're in trouble.
we talked about this. Like we said an episode or two ago, this is this set's bait. It's the
Yeah.
cool new card. It has a very clear pathway of what it wants to do, but 240 is not a magical number. And to get your bench built out to 8 spots is not as easy as it was in the days of Roaring Skies Shaman,
No.
right? We have Squawkabilly. Squawkabilly you can only do on and use its ability on your first turn. Shaman, you could Shaman whenever you wanted. Draw cards, draw cards, draw cards, bench, 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 bench. Boom, I hit you with my Rayquaza. It's not as easy right now. We don't have the resources that we did then to make this as simple. Couple that with the fact that this can't attack on its second turn,
Yeah.
and this deck is slow and it doesn't do enough damage if Terrapagos is the featured attacker.
100%. I truly don't think Terrapagos would be like broken if it could attack going second. Just make it attack. That's what Miraidon. Why
Yeah.
why is no one complaining about Raikou, Electro Generator and attacking going second, or Miraidon if you can get the 3, or Iron Hands if you can
Or
get the
Iron
4.
Hands, yeah.
So it's like let Terrapagos play like this. Like Pokemon, we're watching a Japanese tournament right now. Headquarters is there. Lift the ban on this card. Let it attack going second. That would I level it out a little bit because right now this is a support Pokemon. That's all it is in my mind. It is a support Pokemon that allows you to pair it with the stadium to go to 8 bench spots. So
Absolutely.
anyway, yeah,
Totally agree with you. It's like, what's the easiest EX to lay down that Palkia can still put energies on and attack?
yeah,
This. It's
Terrapaga.
Terrapagos, and it's a backup support Pokemon at its best.
Quickly before we move on, the one Articuno for the ability to paralyze,
Yes.
kind of sneaky cool. I wonder if that really helped as the tournament went on. I think in the early rounds you could stick some newer players or less experienced players, but I think once you get into best of threes, you're holding the Turo or you're holding the prime catcher for the paralyzation.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In a best of one, I'm sure it did wonders. And if you remember, it was either the beginning of last season or 2 seasons ago. This was a very popular deck in some water decks as well as some Lost Box decks.
Wait, can I say something? I thought the behind me on the screen, I thought he was laying out his cards, doing like a what was in his deck. This is two
That's his
this is
bench.
two area zeros against each other. There are like 19 Pokemon on the field. Plus your I thought he was doing like this. I have 4 of this and 4 of this. That's what I thought that was. No.
This is
that-
chaos. This is chaos. You gotta, because they've got to keep it tight in the stream world. They got to see
Yeah.
all the Pokemon out there.
That is obscene. Wow, I haven't seen that since Skyfield, and I really haven't seen it on a stream like that. So anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I just had to say
You're
it.
good.
I had to say it.
At the end of the day, it is what it is, and I think there's going to be some better decks that we're about to talk about that we've seen on live that are leveraging Area Zero in some better ways.
Cool. I agree 100% with you. Okay, just a quick round out the top 8, then we'll move on. We had another Raging Bolt. Did not have the Briar in it, so maybe that's telling you something there, Raging Bolt players. Regidrago, another version of it, got 7th. Did not have any. I'm just double checking. Yep, no Stellar Crown cards. Dragonbolt, Pidgeot, which I think could start to see some play as well, Jared, had a Crispin in it, not a Briar, so that was in there. Crispin was from the last set, wasn't Crispin? Well, that wasn't Stellar Crown, was it? I might be wrong.
I think Crispin is Stellar Crown.
And the Sparkling Crystal is in this deck, which
Yes.
allows you to attack for 1 less energy.
Yes.
So I think that will be pretty much a staple in a lot of these Dragonbolt decks. I think that's going to be the card that comes out, the ace spec card. So anyway, that rounds out the top 8. The quick statistics of it, we are across the board. This was top 16. 3 Lugias, 2 Raging Bolt, 2 Regidrago, 2 Charizard, 2 Dragapult, 2 Gardevoir, 2 Iron Thorns, and 1 Palkia. So Iron Thorns, Jared, I don't know. Maybe we need to get Fernando on the podcast. Talk a little bit about Iron Thorns, because man, what would happen to the Pokemon world if Iron Thorns started just winning tournaments again? I mean, it won Worlds. What if it? I mean, what would happen? Yeah, and I think you're muted.
It got slept on hard in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll see more of it come these tournaments this weekend. I think you'll see some more of it numbers wise. Do I think it'll win? I have no idea, but you'll see some more of it in Louisville as well.
Are we running it in Louisville? Are we running?
Shout out to our boy Fernando. What I do want to talk about is these other 2 decks that we're kind of seeing on live that are incorporating Stellar Crown strongly, that we think we may see some of in Brazil and Germany.
What are you seeing?
Well, we have to talk about seeing Area Zero with Electric, and then using the Mewtwo as their Terra Pokemon to lay down their bench. I like this. I think it still has some limitations, but it is fast. It is good, and it allows your Raikou to get to numbers that it's never been able. Again, the problem with all of this is playing a smart opponent. they're not going to let you get to the numbers that they want to get to by laying down bench Pokemon, regardless of what you do on your bench.
No, you have to pretend like they have 5. I think if you're going the Raikou, the Zapdoses help a ton with this. I played against it the other day on live, might have been yesterday, and it felt like a scene from Fast and Furious where I was in Terrapagos and my opponent had Raikou and they just smoked me off the line. Like I was like, this is the poor version of this because I can't get above 240 and they're hitting for 310 or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, okay, I think the way North America plays Maridon, the cult of Jesse Parker. I think there's going to be a lot of Maridon at Louisville for sure. But yeah,
Absolutely. But I
yeah,
think that will be dependent on what the read is. If Reggie Dragos is still going to be everyone's number one, it makes sense. But if you start getting if like Charizard is going to make a run, this deck can't run into Charizard, man. It's all about your meta read. It was the perfect meta read for Worlds from people like Stefan and Jesse. Perfect meta read. But moving forward, if the big boys are coming back, if you're expecting to see a lot of Dragapult, a lot of Charizard,
yeah, yeah.
you're having to two-shot your way or hope that they're laying down 2 prize Pokemon on their bench to get at.
It's weird. I'm on Twitter here, and there was an update from Pokemon. They're releasing a electric promo Terra card, basic EX, 1 energy. It does 10, but if you played an Electro Generator this turn, it does 300 for 1 energy. Wow, that's wild. Wonder if that'll get played.
What a
Uh,
scoop here first. Scoop
yeah.
here. You heard the
Okay.
scoop here first.
Okay. What's your second one? So a Raikou, I 100% agree with you.
And then I think you will see Palkia Dusknoir
Yeah.
variants with where they're spreading the field. We saw it a little bit at Baltimore. I think those are the 2 decks that are going to be able to leverage Stellar Crown better. And then, like we saw in Japan, it'll just be old, powerful decks getting a little bit stronger or getting a different read.
Yeah, I think a lot of Dusknoir. I think there's definitely going to be Dusknoir lurking around for sure. People are figuring it out. We mentioned this last episode. They're figuring it out. Do you think there will be a Lost Box deck that makes a run, or is it dead? Is it completely dead?
I think it can sneak in now if Reggie Drago is starting to take up less of the share, right? Because I don't see decks that are running one-off Kyrems expecting to see this deck,
Sure.
but that will be the meta response if Lost Box has a showing this
Okay.
weekend, right?
Yeah.
Like so, but I would play Lost Box right now because I don't think people are teching Kyurem to come at you as hard. So I think it's an interesting time to play Lost Box. I think you'll see some of it in probably Europe more than Latin America.
There could be interesting terror cards, the new Stellar Crown ones you could pair because you can mix match the energies, which holds back a lot of the newer ones because it's like who has a fighting leaf and an electric, right? But you can grab that in a Lost Box deck, right? That's very easy to do with Mirage Gates. So I don't know. Maybe there's a sneaky combination that we're missing here. So anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back and we're going to dive into the next regionals coming up this weekend. All right, we're back from break with those amazing commercial ads that you heard that help pay for our show. Perfect time to talk about Stray Collections, who's just the premier provider of card openings. We got 2 boxes of Stellar Crown, Jared, and I may be doing a little box opening with our boy Ben over at Stray Collection. So we'll see. We're going to do it before Louisville, so we have some cards to play.
Love it.
That'll be good. All right, Jared, we're going to play a little game called You Pick, I Pick. And we're picking 2 regionals that are happening this weekend. You're taking Dortmund,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm taking Joinville in Brazil. Latin America versus Europe.
Love it.
Tell our fans how we're going to do this. What are our questions?
So we just have 5 simple questions here, and we're going to answer for each of our locations. We'll compare next week. Stuff that you all are pretty familiar with. We like to talk about what's going to be the majority share, what's going to win. But my first question, and I'll throw it to you first on what's going to be in Brazil. What are you expecting to be the day one share most popular deck in the tournament?
In Brazil, Charizard Pidgeot.
Okay.
And that'll be the number 1 played deck in Brazil. Day 1, Charizard Pidgeot. I think You just take the best Charizard Pidgeot players. You don't get too far down the list without mentioning Pedro Partusi, William Acevedo, who come from Latin America. These two will have seen what happened in Japan. They're going to play Briar in their deck. And along with many other people that follow them, they're going to run Charizard Pidgeot.
Okay, I like that a lot. I don't. I'm going to make a prediction. I think we will see some spicy things in Europe. I just can't see the meta shift that hard based on what we've seen. I don't think Briar moves the needle far enough for people to crown a new number one deck. So I think people are going to sit back and they're going to play more Reggie Drago. So I think it'll be followed up closely. Second will probably be Charizard, but I don't think Reggie Drago got bumped enough by what's in Stellar Crown for it to make a difference. Reggie Drago must play day one deck.
Okay. All right. Okay. What's our next one?
Next one is we've seen things shift. What's in day two is not always what's in day one. What's going to be our day two most popular deck in Brazil?
I think after the dust settles, Lugia will be the top deck in day two in Brazil. I like its matchup into Charizard Pidgeot. I think it can get going quickly. It always has the threat of Iron Thorns, which can knock out the Pidgeot, really put back the Charizard. Give me Lugia as most played day two in Joinville, Brazil.
I'm actually going to take Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt has been sitting in the top three. I think the Briar makes it an interesting matchup. I think we'll see some spicy techs in some of these decks. So I'm going to say that Raging Bolt will be the most played day, kind of following what Europe has seen in Japan.
Okay. All right. I like it. I like how we're a little different right now. That's
yeah.
four different decks. That's good.
Or different decks.
Okay.
The next question I have to you is what's going to win, Corey? And will it? And a sub question of that is name the person that you think is going to win. What are they running, and what's the deck?
William Acevedo. He's going to take this down. Brazil is so. I'm not offending. I don't want to offend anybody. It's a very top-heavy region, right? You have obviously the Cifuentes family. That's clearly we have to put the family now into it. So you have brothers, father. They're there. Pedro, William. Like you just have these top-level players, and I think William can clean the field with this. Give him Pidgeot, Charizard, and it will win Joinville Brazil regionals.
I love it. I'm taking an OG great player. I'm taking Robin Schulz and putting him on Briarzard as I'm saying it. That is a style of deck because Robin was actually, if I remember, he was a great Zoroark player. And I think it gives you similar options. You're either trapping your opponent into three prize cards and then Dusknoring Briar win the game, or if they're just going twos the whole way, great. Then let's win the game that way and then just play the Briar at the appropriate time. So I'm taking Robin and I'm taking him on Briarzard.
So he's going to beat towards control deck in finals, huh?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. All right. My next question to you is what will be the highest finishing deck that features a majority of cards, say more than 3 cards from the new set? Will we see a electric, a water? Will we see Area 0 creep into a top 8 in Brazil?
It's hard to. I don't want to pick Palkia, but I just think that's the obvious choice for most Stellar Crown cards in a deck that would do well. I really want to pick something else, but I'm gonna go Palkia. Palkia Terrapagos. They'll have some in top 16 because I think it's a fun deck because it's new. Palkia is not new, but Terrapagos is new, and just the way you play it's new. So I think that will make an appearance. That'll be the top finishing deck with the most Stellar Crown cards.
I like it. I think we will actually see a Raikou crack the top 8.
Okay.
I think we'll see an electric deck. I just think it's too fast. The one thing that we haven't talked about in a lot of these decks that are going to run Briar, and this is why I think Briar with Raging Bolt actually won, is you've got to be quick. Like there's still the threat from quick decks right now. That's the threat to Gardevoir. That's the threat to these Charizard decks. If you get going at them quick, we saw it at Worlds. It can happen. I don't think it'll be a majority. I think you'll sneak one. I don't think obviously it'll win, but I'm going to take some version of Raikou Miraidon with the Mewtwo EX Area Zero creeping in and seeing a good strong finish there.
All right. Do you think they'll come up with a tool card that while this tool is attached, this Pokemon is a Terra Pokemon? Like, I think you could put that and then put it on Iron Hands and it'd be over. You get 4 prizes in one turn.
That'd be wild. I would love to see that.
You know,
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
all right.
I'm distracted by the cool Japanese.
I know there's some good ads
some
playing. on the
really
back
good
right
ads.
now.
I'm like, I want to see some of this. I want to see some of this in America.
I'm
I
gonna
love
hit
it.
these. I'm gonna hit these companies up. Look at Garchomp. Like,
I
what
love
is
it.
that?
It's too cool. It's too
Aaron,
freaking cool.
shout out to Aaron Brown. He'd be playing whatever game this is or show,
Absolutely.
whatever. Yeah. All right.
Here's my last question for you. If you're any listener of our podcast, you know that we love to talk control. Does control have a prayer in a Stellar Crown meta? And will you see one in day 2? Or we'll see one in day 2. Will you see one crack top 8?
You know, not to get too graphic here. This is a kid's show, but you're a dad. I'm a dad, and sometimes as dads, we have to go to the bathroom and take a break. And the bathroom break usually are real. You have to go to the bathroom, but most of the times I am just sitting there because it's like I need a minute to catch my breath. And I did this yesterday, and all I did was go through the Japan top 8 and think what control cards would be great against these top 8 finishers. And I'm not gonna lie, I felt pretty good about it. So yes, there will be control can live in this meta, Jared. I think right now people are obsessed with these fun new cards like Briar, Area Zero, Glass Trumpet, all very fun stellar cards. You know what they don't do, Jared? They don't retreat your Pokemon from the active spot. And that becomes an issue because you know what cards are real boring? Switch cart. Like those are what? Who needs those? You start taking those out of your deck to add fun cards like Glass Trumpet. Snorlax goes and so I don't know. I don't know. I see it coming. You're gonna put your Briar in instead of Professor Turo. Oops, you're gonna make a boop.
Oopsies.
Oopsies. So, yes, I'm a little biased, but I do think there's room for some control here right now. What do you think?
I think it's interesting because we talked last week about the Stone Mask Ogre Pawn partnered with the Noivern EX and how that was really the show out deck of the tournament. Hadn't really seen something like that before. So I've been thinking a lot about that, looking at what's new. Yeah, man, I wouldn't steal or Stone Mask would run Charizard, like run some of these decks. But the really scary one for it because of the Terrapagos is the Palkia. You can't. They have an answer for both cards. You go Noivern, okay, I'm going to come smack you with Palkia. You go Stone Mask, like, okay, I'm going to come smack you with Terrapagos. So that's the only one that feels a little shifty there. Otherwise, I feel like some version of control could be good. But you're right, nothing has shifted a whole lot to where I'm like, yeah, you've gone Briar. So
Yeah.
maybe there is a Turo down, and maybe that's an opening. So I think control could. I think we'll obviously see a little bit more of that in Europe than we will, even though clearly Latin America has some fantastic control players. It's just more prevalent. That mindset is more prevalent, I think, in European tendencies than it is in South American tendencies.
Agreed. But yeah, I think there'll be a showing at both for sure. Hopefully not too good of a showing so that maybe someone can run at Louisville. You don't know. All right. Those are our predictions. We'll see how we do. We'll touch base next week. We're going to take another really quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about our educational moment. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back from break. Educational moment. Jared, last week, our educational moment was generalize versus specialize. If you want to hear it, go listen to the last episode. It was a goodie. What is our educational moment today before we wrap up our episode?
All right, I just want you to do it with me right now. Okay, here we go. You ready?
No.
In, out. In, out. That's our educational moment today.
Oh, I like
Folks,
it.
folks, you got to pause and breathe
Mm,
when you're in a big match.
yeah.
You have to. I can't tell you how many times because I get really flustered in big moments. I'm either the clearest human being ever and I've won some epic matches, or my brain is on fire and it's saying, just play a card and get rid of this anxiety. Like, please play a card and get rid of this anxiety. And we're going to show this next week on our podcast. And I think we'll have a few more examples. But we have some great video evidence. We're going to go back into the film room and talk about had this player just stopped and breathed, they had it. And they knew
Mm.
they had it, but their brain was on fire and they went too
Oh,
quick and
okay.
they could not get done what they needed to get done. But we needed to have this week to talk about it because I want to talk about the psychology. Next week, we're going to be looking at the direct application of what that looks like.
Okay.
But Corey, can you remember a time? I want to let you talk about a time, and I'm going to talk about two times where you just took that moment to say, let me consider my options. Let me just physically breathe. And it paid dividends. And maybe about a time where if you had just thought it through and took in a breath, it would have paid off for you.
Ooh, good questions. There was definitely, and this is all old because we're old, so forgive me, people. But this was I think it was a Sylveon Control tournament. It might have been Portland, and the Trevenant item lock deck was the opponent, and it was a hard matchup, and I think there were definitely a lot of breaths because each turn I should have just been like, I'm not going to win, but I took breaths, analyzed what was going on, figured what cards would be helpful. And I think when you take that moment, you can think of the best case scenario move to make in a game that I know has a lot of chance involved, but a lot of times you just have to make the one that has the best odds for you to win the match. And I do think that game there were breathtaking. And I took that down and moved on to day two, and that was a great moment there in a career where I was like really trying to. That was like the first goal, right? It was like let's make day two. And so, yeah, I mean, that was a long time ago, but I do remember sitting back and being very calm, and again, a matchup where it was not in my favor at all. Um, I would say one where I did not have enough composure was probably this past San Antonio regionals on Gardevoir, and there was a match up against, man, I don't remember. I just made so many boo boos because when you got and Gardevoir's biggest problem, right, is these ties. So it's like I lost game one, had a big comeback in day two, or game one, lost game two, big comeback in one. Didn't have a lot of time in game three, and I was just blowing and going, and I made so many mistakes. Where like
Mm,
I was retreating stuff and putting energies on the wrong things. When in reality, I think I made plays, did something and passed, and I looked and I was like, I could have just like Cresselia and knocked out something. What was I doing?
yeah.
You know, like it just wasn't. I wasn't breathing. I was going so quick, and I think that's the detriment when you're not composed.
Yeah. No, that's great. I'll talk about two matches that I know you were present for both of. One of these, well, actually, both of these we talk about a lot. One of these a little more because it was so tragic. But back in the day, Corey and I were at a city competition in Portland.
Hmm.
Corey actually, I believe, either top eighted or top forward at that competition, running Tyranitar, Stormfront Tyranitar, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was running a Bennett tool deck. Speed deck was a really unique deck. My pathway was set up.
Hmm.
I really believe I had the deck that could have won that tournament because it was low HP Pokemon and Pixies. The Pixie level X's were really prevalent at that time. And what were they weak to? Psychic. They were weak to
Yeah.
Psychic, and I had a great quick Psychic deck going for me.
Yep.
I'm 2-0. I'm in my third match and I have this kid that I'm playing on the ropes, excited, about to do all the things, do all the quick damage, shuffle my very small discard pile into my deck. Game loss. These
Yeah.
are just best of ones at these
Yep.
cities,
Yep.
and they just derailed me for the rest of the day. But it was because I knew it, I saw it, and I needed to just slow down and take a breath. If I had just
Yep.
slowed down and taken a breath,
Yep.
not gotten so excited about the wins that was happening, I would have been fine. And
Yeah.
I need to do that more. And it goes both ways, right? Whether you're flustered and it doesn't seem like there's an out, take
Yeah.
a breath. If
Take a
you've
breath.
got the dub in hand,
Yep.
sequence things correctly, take that breath, go home with your W. We get so excited or so down and experience those serotonin blasts or lack thereof, and we're just like, no,
Yep.
we're going to
Take
take
a minute, take a breath, let it go. Well, that's what we're going to do, Jared. 'Cause I'm so
Absolutely.
sorry. Our producer, Zach, he's wrapping us up.
He's wrapping us up.
We got to go.
I'll tell you my Machamp Gengar story another time.
I want to hear it to lead off the next episode. Cliffhanger. We're not This Is Us, but we're close. I'm Corey. That's Jared.
We'll catch you later.
You can find us at roguemedianetwork.com. Teach Me Pokemon Podcast. Come and dive with us.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.